A very good afternoon. It's the 3rd of November 2022. Welcome to Lunchtime News here on TV1. For the News First team, where the people come first, I'm Sanita Senanayak. Before we take a look at the stories that we've got for you this afternoon in detail, let's take a look at the headlines. Special discussion on debt restructuring to be held today. Granting approval to temporarily suspend the importation of bathware is an injustice to the consumer, says the Committee on Public Finance. Legal provisions on marriages between Sri Lankans and foreign nationals relaxed. North Korea fires suspected intercontinental ballistic missile. Do-or-die clash for Pakistan as they take on South Africa. On to those stories in detail. The Revolutionary Students' Union spoke about yesterday's protest opposing state repression at a media briefing in Colombo today.
The government feared this protest well before it commenced. There was a police presence in Colombo to match the number of protesters. Police officers from Anuradhapura, Trincomalee, Tangol and Mathura had been brought to Colombo at a massive cost. These are images from the protest. What is this government aiming to achieve by spending exorbitant amounts on defence instead of spending that on education or health? The people's tax funds are being used to suppress the same people. They continue to limit financial allocation towards sectors such as education and health while directing them towards trivial matters.
Ruling party parliamentarian Jagat Kumara also expressed his opinion on the protest held in Colombo yesterday.
People can protest and demonstrate. It is undemocratic to attempt to take over power by force and topple a government. Yesterday, the people sent a message to the opposition that they will step forward when a government needs to be changed, and this is not the time. That is why the protest on Wednesday failed. Some tried to use it to their advantage.
State Minister of Finance Ranjit Siambalapitiya said that it is the responsibility of all act in a manner that does not obstruct the development of the country.
In 2018, we generated a revenue of over $1 million. In 2021, that was around $18,473. We have shown a growth in the past 8 months. If we truly love this country, we need to understand the limits of political objectives. That is the responsibility of all.
Former parliamentarian Sunil Handurnethi spoke at an event in Mathura yesterday. The event was organized as another phase of a program named Let's Review Our Fractured Motherland, which seeks to shed light on how Sri Lanka's governance over the past 70 years deteriorated the country's socio-economic status. We bought Panadol for ₹1.50 and also at ₹5.50. Now we don't have Panadol to buy. You bought fertilizer at ₹350. Urea was bought at ₹650. Now they want you to pay ₹40,000. Because you don't have ₹40,000, you resort to applying a concoction of chemicals and hope they work. Is there anyone who can claim they were able to purchase more of a certain good because this government gave us a good price for tea or for cinnamon? Can anyone say that they were able to get an additional source of income? No, they're not carrying out conventional scams anymore. They're looting from the people's food. Thieves don't rob banks anymore. They break into homes, open the fridge and find something to eat. Even the robbers are starving. That is why we cannot leave anything out in the open these days. Hunger is the greatest burden right now. Few queues were seen once again at several filling stations in the island.
Many fuel stations in Mathura did not have fuel since this morning. As a result, long queues were seen near filling stations. Fuel stocks were unloaded at about 8 this morning. According to our correspondent, fuel queues can still be seen near the filling stations. Fuel was not issued to the fuel stations in Hambantota today. Petrol was issued to one fuel station and a long queue of vehicles were observed. Petrol was not issued for many filling stations in Galle today. According to our correspondent, petrol was not issued for filling stations near the Southern Expressway and in Pitigalwatta, Magalla and Devata.
Sri Lanka will hold another round of online discussions on restructuring its debt. State Minister of Finance Shehan Singh has said all the creditors will join the meeting scheduled for Thursday.
If Sri Lanka is to access the staff-level agreement reached with the International Monetary Fund, the country must have the approval from the IMF Board of Directors. Today's discussions will be a follow-up to the previous round of discussions with creditors. State Minister of Finance Shehan Singh told Newsfirst that the discussions will be focused on the progress Sri Lanka has made so far in terms of reaching an understanding with the creditors. The objective of the meeting is to expedite securing financial assurances from creditors.
Sri Lanka Railways said that it would amend the timetable of all train services. General Manager of Railway D.S. Gunasinghe has said that the decision was taken in view of the continuous train delays. According to the relevant amendment, every train journey would be subject to an amendment of 15 or 20 minutes. He said these amendments will be announced soon. Earlier, the timetable for the trains operating on Marine Drive were amended. In more local news, the Committee on Public Finance says that granting approval to the Gazette notification to temporarily suspend the importation of bathware is an injustice to the consumer. The Committee on Public Finance was of the view that regulations should be subjected to further consideration.
The Committee on Public Finance was of the view that regulations published in the Extraordinary Gazette Notification 2296/30 under the Import and Export Control Act No. 1 of 1969 should be subject to further consideration, and that consideration should also be given as to whether approval for such would stand as justifiable by the consumer. This gazette was published in relation to a temporary suspension on the importation of sanitary fixtures and bathware items such as squatting pans and wash basins. Furthermore, the members of the committee also took into consideration the monopoly created within the market due to the banning of importation of tiles by the same gazette. The committee also considered the fact that in an environment where imports have been suspended, the high rise of prices in bathroom accessories and tiles and the inability to meet the rising demands, which is causing great injustice to the consumer. Accordingly, the committee recommended the Ministry of Finance to submit a report in this regard.
As it was mentioned in the headlines, the restrictions on marriage registration between foreigners and Sri Lankans are ready to be eased. Registrar General PSP Abewardena noted that Circular number 18 of 2021 on registration of marriages between foreigners and Sri Lankans will be abolished. According to this circular, a health declaration is necessary for the confirmation of the health conditions from the relevant foreign nationals. In addition, a security clearance report indicating the foreign national has not been convicted of any offence is also necessary as per the circular. However, Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena had noted that these restrictions must be relaxed. Accordingly, the Registrar General's Department had informed the Defence Ministry and the Health Ministry to introduce alternative processes with regard to a health declaration and security clearance report. Registrar General PSP Abewardena noted that the Attorney General's Department was also informed of these developments. A media briefing organised by the Health Promotion Bureau was held yesterday.
The main requirement among young women is the desire to become fair. Young men focus on getting a six-pack. For this, many males are buying proteins and vitamins. There are options available on the internet to purchase vitamins. Even though these products are marketed as vitamins, most of the time they are steroids, and we have witnessed side effects. Look for the SLS and ISO standards when using a cosmetic. Look for the details of the company selling the product, production date, content and expiry date. Those details must be mentioned when using cosmetics. Don't use the varieties of creams made in salons, as we have no way of monitoring its quality.
ඒවා පාවිච්චි කරන්න එපා මොකද ඒවා ප්‍රමිතිය ගැන අපිට දැනගන්න කිසිම ක්‍රමයක් නැති නිසා.
Bleaching cream එකෙන් විශේෂම hydroquinone කියන වර්ණකය.
When using bleaching cream or hydroquinone for a long period, your skin will become fair at first, but within a few months, your skin will darken. That condition is known as ochronosis. When that happens, we will not be able to recover your skin. That is a unique side effect of these creams. Moreover, these creams can cause damage to your internal body. It could affect the kidney and liver. Steroids will lead to an increase in the sugar levels in your blood. Bones could get inferior and also cause a loss of vision. These side effects are a result of the creams used by people to get fairer skin.
භාවිතා කරන ආලේපන නිසා.
Sri Lanka police arrested a robber and 3 buyers linked to a break-in in Panadura. Sri Lanka police arrested a man who broke into a house in Pinwatta, Panadura and stole kitchen appliances. The suspect had also revealed to the police that he had stolen 4 bicycles, and thereafter the bicycles were also recovered. Discussions are underway to provide a grace period for illegal weapons to be handed over to the authorities. According to the Secretary to the Ministry of Public Security, S. Hetty Arachi, the President has already approved the decision.
The Secretary to the Ministry of Public Security said the timeline of the grace period will be announced soon, adding that any illegal weapons can be turned over to the closest police station during the window. Speaking further, he said a payment will also be made depending on the type of weapon that is handed over. Further steps on the matter are currently underway under the supervision of the Ministry of Defence. This move comes against a backdrop where 39 people have been killed since the 30th of May this year by organised criminals.
Russia's largest charter airline, Azur Air, commenced its services to Sri Lanka with effect from Thursday. An Azur Air flight with 335 passengers touched down at the Katanayak airport on Thursday morning. The objective of these flights to Sri Lanka is to boost the country's tourism sector, awarding more opportunities to Russian tourists. Former Sri Lankan ambassador to Russia, Udanga Veeratunga, told reporters that the group that arrived in Sri Lanka is likely to stay for 10 days. However, due to the war between Ukraine and Russia, their stay might be extended. He also said that tourism will recover only with the arrival of tourists and thereby generate much important foreign revenue to the country. In international news, North and South Korea have fired a number of missiles into waters near each other's coasts in a marked escalation of hostilities.
The North launched its most missiles in a single day, at least 23, including one that landed less than 60 kilometers off the south city of Sokcho. Seoul responded with warplanes firing 3 air-to-ground missiles over the disputed Maritime Democratic Line. Later, Pyongyang fired 6 more missiles and a barrage of 100 artillery shells. The North says the launches are in response to large-scale military exercises currently being held by South Korea and the United States, which it calls aggressive and provocative. On Tuesday, Pyongyang warned they would pay the most horrible price in history if they continued their joint military drills, seen as a veiled threat to use nuclear weapons.
In some news from America, US President Joe Biden has warned any candidate who refused to accept defeat in next week's midterm elections could set the nation on a path to chaos.
US President Joe Biden urged Americans to unite in opposition to political violence in the vote on the 8th of November. Biden, a Democrat, said former President Donald Trump and his supporters were peddling lies of conspiracy and malice. Republicans hit back that Biden was seeking to divide and deflect. Control of both chambers of Congress and key state governorships are hanging in the balance in next week's elections. Most forecasts suggest Republicans will win control of the House of Representatives, while the Senate could go either way. Biden spoke in nationally televised remarks on Wednesday evening at Washington, D.C.'s Union Station, just a few streets from where Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol last year in an attempt to overturn the results of the 2020 election.
Russia has said it will rejoin a UN-backed agreement to allow the export of grain from Ukraine via a safe Black Sea corridor, with shipments expected to resume on Wednesday.
Russia's defense ministry confirmed that Moscow would again participate, saying it had received sufficient guarantees from Kyiv that it would not use the maritime corridor for military operations against Russia. The ministry said, quote, Russia considers that the received guarantees are at the moment sufficient and is resuming the implementation of the agreement, unquote. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said earlier that Russian Defense Ministry Sergei Shoigu had told his Turkish counterpart that the grain deal brokered by Turkey and the United Nations would continue to operate as of midday on Wednesday. Turkey's role in bringing Russia back to the initiative highlights that Ankara is now the de facto mediator between Moscow and Kyiv.
Taking a look at some news from the T20 World Cup, Pakistan cannot afford another slip-up as they take on the only unbeaten team in the tournament, South Africa, at the Sydney Cricket Ground on Thursday.
It's a must-win game for Pakistan as they have a potent, in-form South African attack, fresh off devouring India to conquer. 2 narrow losses to kickstart the campaign isn't exactly how Pakistan would have planned for their tournament to go, and it has left them needing to win their big game against South Africa and hoping other results go their way. But South Africa could pose big headaches to this Pakistan team. They are the only unbeaten team in this year's T20 World Cup, and more importantly, they have shown strengths in different departments to possibly go all the way this time around. For one, the Proteas batting lineup is a never-ending string of pace hitters who don't just counter pace but smash it. The South African middle order is arguably the best in this tournament, and it has stepped up more than once already in this short event.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of Lunchtime News here on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I've been Senita Sena Naik. Thank you for watching.